Good morning. It's April 2nd. It's really early in the morning. I'd rather be sleeping right now. I gotta get these glasses adjusted. But yesterday I embarked on two things that were, eustress. There's stress, strain, and there's eustress. Eustress is supposed to be good stress, but it throws us off, and I got few good things going, and they're throwing me off a bit. Some things I wasn't expecting or planning on. I'll tell you about those later. What I want to do is I want to get back to work here. So this will be our third Bible study. We're going to be in Genesis 4. We're going to start with 4:10. What I want to cover is that what we read last time was that what's referred to as the original sin. It's also called the fall of Adam. Now, I don't like the term the original sin. I can go with the fall of Adam because it was the fall of Adam. And it was the original sin in terms of the major event that changed everything for everybody on the earth at this point, not just for our race, not just for our kind, but for everybody else. Be grateful today, folks. We're in relative peace. This treasonous group that's running the country today is going to destroy the country. They're intent upon getting World War III going. They would like to see it go thermonuclear. And I know you're going to say that's crazy. Well, what Yogi Bhajan, also known as Siri Singh Saab, said is that there are two characteristics for the end of this world. I don't know if he called it that. Probably called it the end of the age. It's been quite a while. Heck, I was about more than 40 years ago, he said this stuff. Said the two things you're going to be knowing it's going to be getting worse towards the end. Said that the insanity would increase. I think we're seeing the insanity increase. I think we're seeing that with these politicians and with these events. The other was that women would become absolutely merciless. And that appears to be the case today, that women they're on the merciless side if they ever were. So we're seeing those two things going hand in hand. What I want to get over to you today, I'd like to go over to what I consider the original sin, which happens in Genesis chapter 6. We're not going to make it that far today because I really want to take these things apart for you and tell you what I think they mean and what my brothers think they mean. You get the overhead light on here. Sorry about that. I know it's a little bit bright. It's bothering my eyes at this early hour. As I said, I'd rather be in bed. And Yahweh said unto Cain, Where is Abel your brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? Pretty famous line from the Bible. And he said, What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. And now you are cursed from the earth, which has opened her mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you till the ground, it shall not henceforth yield to you her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shall you be in the earth. And Cain said unto Yahweh, My punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, you have driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from your face shall I be hidden, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that every one that finds me shall slay me. Folks, there's a lot of myths about what's in the Bible, and one is that all men came from Adam. Because if If Cain is complaining to Yahweh that other people out there are going to kill him if they see him, that means there's other people. So what we have here is Yahweh confronting Cain with about the fact he murdered his half-brother Abel. Interesting that the voice of your brother's blood has a voice. It's got to have a memory. It's got to have all kinds of stuff going on with it. Blood's kind of important. The blood of life and the water of life are both important. So Cain complains that his punishment is greater than he can bear and that people out there will kill him. So there's other folks on the planet. Not everybody's from Adam. You got to get that one right. We'll continue. And Yahweh said to him, therefore, whoever slays Cain, vengeance shall be upon him sevenfold. And Yahweh set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. And Cain went out from the presence of Yahweh, and dwelt in the land of Nod, on the east of Eden. So we know that Cain has got a mark. We don't know if it's a mark on his forehead or if he just looks kind of funny or if he's got a tattoo. But it basically warns everyone else that whatever you do to harm Cain, it's going to come upon you 7 times, sevenfold. And we know that Nod was the land to the east of the garden. It also was known as the land of wanderers. This was the land of the Mongoloids, Mongolians. Some people like to, Pastor Paul Burnham likes to call them Chinamen. He prefers that term over anything else. I don't like it as much. I prefer to think of them as Mongoloids. Oh, and I believe they were here first. Okay. And Cain went out from the presence of Yahweh. Chapter 17. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. And he built a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. So Cain took a Mongoloid woman to wife. She had a son named Enoch. This is important. We have the beginnings of what I would call parallel construction and perhaps even deception here, because we're going to see another Enoch in a little bit, and he was a good guy. And we know he built cities, so there were other men, most likely. And he names it after his son. Verse 18, and to Enoch was born Irad, and to Irad begot Mehujael, and Mehujael begot Methusael, and Methusael begot Lamech. That's important. You need to get to Lamech. You need to understand who Lamech is. So Lamech was a son of Cain. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Lamech is the 7th from Cain. So it's his it's his great-great-great-grandson. This gets a little nebulous. The story is in extra biblical books. At least it was told to me that way. I can't even point to you which one. I'll admit that. And Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of the one was Ada, and the name of the other one was Zillah. And Ada, so that's important, the 2 wives. And Ada bore Jebel. He was the father of such as dwell in tents and such as have cattle. The good guys do that as well. And his brother's name was Jubal, 1-letter difference. And he was the father of all such as handled the harp and organ. So we have musicians, we have animal husbandry, we have tent makers, tent dwellers. Verse 22, and Zillah, she also bore Tubal-Cain. an instructor of every craftsman in brass and iron, and the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. Naamah is important. So Tubal-Cain's similar to Jubal-Cain, in that the instructor of every craftsman in brass and iron. So we have metallurgy, and that's very important, especially in today's technology, whereby people are combining metals in a way that's deleterious to our health. Okay. Naamah was an important figure. We think that she may have gotten on the ark and survived. We're not sure about this one. We think she may play a bigger role than what we have documented here. Verse 23 in chapter 4, and Lamech said to his wives, Adah and Zillah, hear my voice, you wives of Lamech, listen to my speech, for I have slain a man in my wounding, and a young man for my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech 70 and sevenfold. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son and called his name Seth. For God, she said, has appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. And to Seth, to him also was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then began men to call upon the name of Yahweh. Other versions say to call upon the name of the Lord, or to call upon God. So this is when men first started to call upon the Lord. Was that for help? Was that in worship? This is where it started. It's an important thing. It's in the Bible. And maybe we should do the same thing. Maybe we should do the same thing. Now, what we just went over was Lamech. And Lamech had two wives, Adah and Jabal. And here's the problem. Lamech said to his wives, Adah and Jabal, hear my voice. He stopped them from their action. The story is that Lamech was out hunting with one of his sons, hunting deer. And he mistook the patriarch of his line, Cain, for a deer, and killed him with his arrow, shot him with a bow and arrow. And so he killed Cain. And remember, if Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, he says Lamech 70 and sevenfold. Why is he saying this to them? He's saying this to them because they all knew about the family curse, and his two wives, Adah and Zillah, according to my buddies, encroached upon their husband to kill him because they killed the family patriarch Cain. He killed the family patriarch Cain in an accident. And then, of all the darn things, he killed the son that was hunting with him too, because in his anguish he threw his arms up. He threw his arms up and hit his son in the head, in the face, in the head, and with one blow killed his own son. So his teenage son, who was out hunting with him, he killed him. And so his two wives were going to kill him because he killed two people, and he killed Cain. So that's kind of an important thing. We also have one Lamech, and we have the beginnings of, I'm just pointing out, we have the beginnings of this parallel construction, which is sort of deceptive, and we find out that evil kind of imitates good. There's something about stealing the identity early on that's important, and this stuff is kind of a mystery. So I'm going through it with you to tell you that these are the thoughts that we have that prevail. This is what older brothers have come up with after reading the Bible a lot more than I have, and reading extra biblical books as well. Genesis 5:1. This is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God made he him. Male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam, in the day when they were created. And Adam lived 130 years, and begot a son in his own likeness, after his own image, and called his name Seth. This phrase, after his own likeness, in his own likeness, after his image, is important, because in the creation of the earthy man, we don't have those two clauses described. So we know that the Adam or Adam kind was a little bit different than what they call the Enosh or Enoshwi. So there's two different words for Adam and Adam kind, and there's another word for Enosh or Enoshwi. Now, just to get general with it, one means Adam, and it means, and the other one means the more earthy man. So one's got an element of nobility attached to him, and the other one has got an element of the earth attached to him. In my opinion, the Mongoloids were the Enosh or Enoshwi, and they've been on the planet they were here first. 1.75 million years. These guys were running around with dragons, lizards, the dinosaurs. They were here. And I believe that Adam kind, was placed on the earth much later. And I want you to understand that I believe that the planet was ruled by devils, by fallen angels. And they were giving all the inhabitants grief. They were raising havoc on the planet. And I also believe that Yahweh, Creator, Father God, decided to have a family on the earth. And this is his family. So Adam was given dominion for the purpose of running the earth with Yahweh, with God, for the benefit of all the inhabitants. And I think that's what was going on, is that we did a pretty good job until all this stuff happened. And then I believe that the fallen angels, the devils, that had been causing grief for maybe 50, 70,000 years, well, more than that probably, but that might be the time, were given dominion. Got it back. And by the time Jesus comes around, Yahshua comes around, the devil owns the whole place and can give him the world, provided he worships the devil. I think that's what the deal was, the offer was. And I think that's what the offer is for these people in Hollywood. You want to be rich and famous? Good. Make a deal with us. Worship Lucifer, worship Satan, and we'll take care of you. We'll make sure you inherit the earth. We'll make sure you're rich and famous. We'll take care of you. You get to have the goodies like we have, and that's all you got to do. You just got to bend the knee, bow down to the Satans. And Adam lived 130 years, and begot a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. So all descendants of Adam kind come through Seth. It's one way to read this. It's one conclusion to make. I think that's important to draw that. And the days of Adam after he begot Seth were 800 years, and he begot sons and daughters. So 130 plus 800 is 930 years for Adam. And the next verse confirms that. And all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. Folks, they lived a lot longer back then. I think there were several reasons for it. I think one was that the atmosphere was denser. I think it had a higher level of oxygen. I think that's what it took to support these big structures, the dinosaurs. I think they had to have more oxygen, and it might have been twice as much oxygen back then. Another aspect that's possible is there might have been an ice dome around the Earth that was filtering out cosmic radiation and protecting the inhabitants of the Earth, and that might have led to them being almost 1,000 years old when they died. And there is some evidence of that. Trey Smith pointed out the fact that these guys from a long time ago had incredible teeth that they grew in perfectly, and they had replacement molars. Well, if you're living 900 years, I guess you've got time to grow teeth. And what he was insinuating and hinting at was that these original Neanderthals or Cro-Magnons that we found, that Neanderthals, I think in particular, were us. We just lost that, and they lived that long back then. So the garden was a bit different. When you got bigger creatures, you got more oxygen, you're healthier, and you live longer. Seth lived after he begot Enos 807 years and begot sons and daughters. So notice, this is a patriarchy. Mostly we're naming the boys. We did come up here and we named Nama, as one of the girls for Lamech. So when you find a female mentioned, it's really significant. I mean, they're not in here for no reason at all. They're in here because they're major players in this thing. Anybody that's mentioned in this book is a major player, but the women are actually a bit more major than the men. So we have a patriarchy. This thing is inherited through the father's line, after the fathers. That's important because that's a mark of an Israelite. We have a patriarchy, not a matriarchy. And all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. And Enos lived 90 years and begot Cainan. I didn't know how I was going to pronounce that, so I'm going to say Cainan, because this is Cainan. This is not Cain, and it's not a Canaanite. So this is rather interesting, and here we have parallel construction. We have Cain, we have Canaanites, we have Canaan, we have Cainan. So Enos lived after he begot Cainan 815 years and begot sons and daughters. By the way, that the birth is very important for the first son, and we always have the years, the age at which he had the son. His wife bore the son, had the son for him, and then we see how long he lived afterwards. And typically they'll mention other sons and daughters. But the oldest is supposed to be the one inheriting, and it's an important thing. That's the natural order, but things aren't quite in the natural order in this book, as we'll see. And Cainan lived 70 years, at 70 years of age, and begot Mahalalel. And Canaan, after he begot Mahalalel, I should say, 840 years, lived 840 years and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Cainan were 910 years, and he died. And Mahalalel lived 65 years and begot Jared. And Mahalalel lived after he begot Jared 830 years and begot sons and daughters. All the days of Mahalalel were 895 years, and he died. And Jared lived 160 years, 62 years, and he begot Enoch. Okay, we got a little parallel construction. Remember what I said. And the purpose of pointing out the parallel construction is so that you can look at it a little bit closer and you can realize that it's very easy to get confused. And why this parallel construction is in here, I think, is to defend the text. Because the Bible does not open itself up to the casual reader. You have to read and reread and keep reading this thing, and it comes more alive to you. You understand it better. So, and also, when you come to these genealogies on your own reading, my advice to you is to just go ahead and push on through, especially some of the more tedious ones we're going to come to, and I'm probably going to do that. Those will be important for future study. They do reveal some key things, and we don't want those little things to slip between the cracks, because We want to understand this stuff. We want knowledge of this. We want to comprehend the Bible. We need that in order to defend ourselves. And so here I am. I'm giving you meat, not just milk, and it's pretty strong meat, I think. So I might be losing you on this, but I'm making it as easy as I can for you. Yeah. Okay. Where did I end up? And all the days of Cainan were 910 years, and he died. And Mahalalel lived 65 years and begot Jared. And Mahalalel lived after he begot Jared 830 years and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Mahalalel were 895 years, and he died. And Jared lived 162 years, and he begot Enoch. That's where we were. And Jared lived after he begot Enoch 800 years and begot sons and daughters during that time. And all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. And Enoch lived 65 years and begot Methuselah. I should know that one. Everybody knows Methuselah. And Enoch walked with God, and after he begot Methuselah 300 years and begot sons and daughters. Enoch walked with God. I should underline that. That's a critical phrase. There's only a few men that walked with God. And all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch, not as long as the others, about a third the lifespan. And Enoch walked with God, repeated, and he was not. In other words, he was gone. For God took him. So, Enoch is one of those guys that may not have ever died. That's an important one. Enoch also, the main character in the books of Enoch, I believe there are 5 of those, he actually did a lot of work with the fallen angels. They begged him to represent them and to intervene upon their behalf with Yahweh because they wanted to be forgiven. That didn't happen. Those books should be biblical books. They shouldn't be extra biblical books. We learn a lot about them. One of the things we learn is that those fallen angels taught women makeup, and they taught women some other things which I'm not even going to allude to. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. And Methuselah lived 187 years and begot Lamech. Here we got another Lamech. This is important because Lamech shows up again a little bit soon. But we have the other Lamech as well. So these are common names. And all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. So this is the cat that lived the longest in the Bible, 969 years. And he called his name Noah. Lamech begot Noah. Very important, saying, this same shall comfort us concerning our work and toil of our hands, because of the ground which Yahweh has cursed. This is interesting, because Noah's going to, basically he's going to be an early savior type. And Lamech lived after he begot Noah 595 years and begot sons and daughters. All the days of Lamech, the second Lamech, were 777 years, 777, and he died. And Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth. If he was 500 years old, he was much older than the others when he became a father. I think that's what it means. It could mean something else. So here we're coming up to what I call the original sin. Genesis chapter 6. Do I need to tell you anything about this last section? I don't think so. I think we got everything that's pretty straight ahead. Men lived a lot longer. There's some overlap in names. There's some similarities. So there's some confusion. So there is some problem in understanding this book. Okay. But it's not just the language, it's the fact that there's parallel construction and similarities. Genesis 6:1. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives, all which they chose. And Yahweh said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. So this is where I get the 120 years from. It's not diminished since then, as far as I can tell. Maybe I'll discover it on this pass-through. Genesis 6:4. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bore children to them, and the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. These are the men that the myths were built on, Hercules being one of them. And Yahweh saw that the wickedness of men was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And Yahweh repented that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him in his heart. And Yahweh said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repents me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of Yahweh. That's as far as we're going to go today. So what happened is that all flesh what's the word? All flesh changed natural order. We have what I will refer to as the interbreeding primarily of fallen angels with human beings. That, I believe, is the original sin. That, I believe, needs to be placed, that burden needs to be placed upon those who did it, namely the fallen angels. So I think of the original sin as when they conspired to do this. So I'm going to tell you a couple of stories that aren't in here, which I think are very important. I think these are going to be in the books that I don't have. We also find some allusion to these, but there was a mountain, Mount Hermon. And on Mount Hermon, if you read the New Testament, Yahshua, Jesus, takes his disciples there one time mention anyway. And after that, he takes his disciples to the Mount of Olives, to the Garden of Gethsemane. But this was an important visit for the disciples. And I'm going to bet you anything that Yahshua told them what happened there. And what we have documented is that there were 200 fallen angels, 1/3 of the host of heaven, that gathered on Mount Hermon, and they conspired among each other. And it was simple talk about, hey, these women, these daughters of these earthlings are pretty good looking. They're fair. It could refer to the skin color, that they were white. Don't know just yet. But that's one way to look at it. The other is that, they just were good looking. We don't know. It could refer to blonde hair as well. We just don't know on that. So we got some flexibility. We know that there were men multiplying on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them. So there were, just like today, there were daughters, a little bit more daughters than men. Women are not a minority. They're the majority. Simple majority, not a vast difference, unless you're in China. After their horrible policy, which I think they've learned a harsh lesson from, because they're losing their population too, very fast. And Yahweh said he wasn't going to put up with man all the time, because the sons of God saw the daughters of men, and I believe the sons of God refers to those fallen angels. And they took all they wanted. They married as whatever they wanted. And back then, they didn't have marriage ceremonies. The marital act was the sex act, and that was considered marriage. So they were taking anyone they wanted. I believe that the fallen angelic DNA um, might have been what people refer to as panspermia today, or try to sell us as panspermia, meaning it's super fertile and it'll fertilize anything. I believe that the fallen angels had their DNA dominated on those unions. There were giants in the earth in those days. I do believe that the giants may have been born from those women, those daughters of men, and I believe that there's a good chance that these babies were oversized, and many of these women died during childbirth because that's the way it is. You know, that baby's going to come out, and if it's too big, it'll just tear the woman up and she will die. So I think that was going on as well. And I don't think Yahweh liked it. Now, if Yahweh had his family here and he's watching his own daughters do this stuff, there's a problem. Tell you a little story from Pastor Jerry Wiki. Pastor Jerry Wiki believed that, oh boy, that slipped my mind right away. He believed that when Eve was seduced by this fallen angel, that Adam and his father Yahweh had a talk. And he believed that during that talk, Yahweh offered Adam to get him a new wife. However, he believes also that Adam said he didn't want a new wife, that he loved Eve and he couldn't live without her. A very romantic saying. And he believes that Adam told his father, Yahweh, he couldn't live without Eve, which meant he was going to be willing to go with Eve and to take on mortality and die and pass away, just like has happened to all of us since then. Supposedly, we were immortal until that time. Well, possible. And it's also possible that his father Yahweh looked at his son Adam and said, okay, I'll tell you what, it's going to be tough, but I'm going to make a way back for you, back for our people to come into the fold, to have eternal life, to have domain over this earth again, to have paradise again. Also, according to Pastor Wiki, he thought of another thing, and that is that the devil decided that he wanted to be God. And in order to inherit that status, he came up with a way to do it. And it was rather conniving. So he thought, if I marry God's daughter, then I'm part of the family, because I'll be his son-in-law and he can't refuse me, and I will ascend and be higher than the Lord. So we have that little story as well. That's just a guess, you know. Pastor Wiki didn't say that's the way it was. He just said it was his guess, and he characterized it as my guess that they had a meeting and Adam was offered a new wife and he refused, and he loved Eve so much he was going to stay with her and go with her. So you ladies out there who want to blame Adam, maybe it was a love story, and maybe Adam had a choice, and maybe Adam made a choice. Oh, we might as well bring up what another older brother of mine, Alan, has been. He knows more about these Bibles and versions of the Bibles than anybody else I know. He says he's not an educated man, but he listens to highbrow music. He's fluent in German, and he reads. He's got a library. He really is a very intelligent man. Of course, he's not educated, so he puts himself down. And he's older than I am, and he's worked as a laborer. He talks about Lilith, and Lilith supposedly was the first wife of Adam. We have Lilith alluded to in the major prophets. Isaiah refers to a haunt for the screech owl and the jackals. And Lilith has got quite a bad quite a reputation. And we also have a reputation for Nama, that woman that was mentioned earlier in today's Bible lesson. So she was important because it is believed that she may have gotten on the ark, and that way the fallen angelic seed was preserved. We just don't know how that happened. We're going to get into that next. So I'm giving you brainstorming on these advanced ideas. I ask you not to cite me as particularly believing those. You can cite me for having said those are possibilities. I want you to read the Bible for yourself. I want you to help me to come up with a better understanding. Everybody, each person, has something to teach you, has something to teach everybody else, and so you can learn from everyone you come across. That was the philosophy of one of the dear, beloved professors in graduate school who I never got to take a class with. Everybody raved about him, and I wished I'd at least taken one class with him. It's a good philosophy, and one of my superiors who was helping me when I was a psychology intern, that's one of the things he reminded me of because we had gone to the same school. I miss Chuck. Sadly, Chuck and I both got fired. I might tell you about that someday. I did my job as required by the state of Alaska, and as a result, to cover up the facts that there was a sin in their family, I got fired. And to cover up their tracks even more about that, the native way was to fire the supervisor too. So Chuck got fired. Had Chuck been available, I would have been able to turn to him, but he was gone. And if I had just been able to ask him, he would have told me what to do and it would have been better. So I made my report and I got in trouble. As a result, I had to go do an internship outside of Alaska. Alaska is the biggest state in the Union, but it's the tiniest village in the world. Those little villagers there that you think are nothing, you think don't mean anything, you think don't have any power or influence, they reach all the way into Washington, D.C. They have tremendous influence and power. I know our congressman, the congressman for all of Alaska, because he was the only one we can have because of our low population, which still remains less than 1 million, was Don Young, and he passed away in an airplane while flying to Alaska. I was about to call him up and shoo him or his chief of staff out for selling us out and going with this new bill to spend us deeper into slavery. We are in Egypt, folks. We are in the greatest slavery system ever devised on this planet. In case you're wondering, from what I can tell, it's run out of that little neutral country over in Europe that claims to be neutral and supposedly has been neutral. As we will find out, everything on this planet is a deception, and we live on a giant plantation at this point. And let me remind you to stay away from me and my kind. Stay away from psychologists and psychiatrists because we manage the plantation for the masters, for our keepers. If you look into it, you will see that half or more of the social scientists, of the social psychologists, of the social psychiatrists and psychologists work for the government and for corporations behind the scene. If you want to understand your government, think of it as a melding of corporations with government in a very illegal, unconstitutional, illicit way. That way, when the government wants to do something that they can't get away with, that they know we won't tolerate, they farm it out to a corporation who does everything they want off the books in private, and Congress has no oversight over that stuff. That's exactly what was happening in the Ukraine. We don't have control over this government. It is an out-of-control government. It's a runaway train. The electorate has not been in charge since the election of Woodrow Wilson. They've been putting up their puppets and manipulating us ever since. Ever since. And the fact is that no man can run for office in this nation unless he's beholden to the devil. He's got to be beholden to the devil and his children in order to be able to get anywhere near close to it. The other thing is that people are so corrupt, we've corrupted our ways, our path. so much that when they do a background check, they don't look to see if you're clean as a whistle. You don't have to be clean. They don't want you clean. They want to find the shit on you. They want to find the skeletons in your closet. Why? So they can control you, so they can manipulate you. And there was a wonderful woman who now lives in Bend, Oregon, and she was from Iran. She's a citizen here, and I don't remember her name. Been out of touch with her for quite a while. Her complaint was that all of these investigations, background checks she did, she investigated them, and when she found the good guys, they were never appointed. They weren't appointed judges. They weren't appointed this other stuff. Only the ones that really weren't qualified were appointed. So all of these people that have been appointed across the years have been screened by the FBI, and she was one of the screeners working for the FBI, and they picked the dirty men. They picked the bad guys to have these positions that really require trust and require a backbone, require, honesty. They pick the guys that they can manipulate. So when you look at all of these positions that are appointed, all of these, you got to remember, what did they do? What did they have on them so that they could take control of these men and these women? It does happen both ways. So we've had the evil appointed to these positions of trust and authority over us. And that's why these bad rulings come out. That's why the bad guys get light sentences or get off completely. That's just part of what's going on. She became a translator for the CIA as well. Her language skills, Farsi and whatever else, were just that good. And so she left to find her own news apparatus. And she really has contributed in a major way to this country. So even though she's foreign born and she's a naturalized citizen, she loves America. And also she comes from Iran. Iran was Persia. The Persian men especially are different. They're far more emotional than we Americans are. They do have stronger emotions, much deeper emotions, and we can't understand them. It's just so different. I went to school with some Persians, and they tried to explain to me how sensitive they were. And they were truly, truly emotionally sensitive men. They were more full human beings in that sense. Not that I advocate that a man should be run by his emotions, but there was quite a bit there, and when their feelings were hurt, they were hurt. And when they were on the verge of crying, they were on the verge of crying. Now, Persia is what they like to call themselves. But before they were Persia, they were Aryan. So that's where we get the Aryans from. And that's also where we get probably where men came from, the steppes of the mountains in Russia. That's probably where we came from. We do know that the fallen angels arrived in a whole different manner. We also know, because of the Chinese, we know that they're also Caucasoid. They also look like us. They're bigger than we are. Generally speaking, they're much bigger than we are. We know there were giants, and it turns out that, to my understanding, there were giants in these different races, if you will. Species is what I prefer to call them. I don't think the concept of race holds much water, because there's greater variety within a race classification than there is between races. And in case you're wondering, I really think that this form that we are in is a universal template, and that would be a 5-pointed star. We have a head, we have 2 arms, we have 2 legs. So we have 5 appendages, if you will. We have 5 points, and that seems to be the template for these aliens as well. I think it's important to brainstorm and open our minds up, because knowledge is going to be increasing incredibly. You have to be able to handle more than what you've handled before. And I get overwhelmed too, just like you do. So we're going to be reading about the flood of Noah. There's more pages and more accounting on the flood of Noah, according to Pastor Dan Gaiman. He pointed this out to me. There's more Bible verses, more chapters dedicated to the flood of Noah than there is to the creation of man. So this is very important because this is where Yahweh tries to correct the errors on the face of the earth. One last thing. Please take care of each other. Ladies, be a little bit more gracious. I know it's hard to be soft in these days. I know it's hard to be feminine. Oh, the owls are calling to each other. It's nice to hear them. The great horned owls. By the way, the owl is the symbol of the bad guys. And if you think you don't see it or you're not subject to it, go look at your dollar bill, folks. Go look at the upper right-hand corner with a little magnifying glass, and you will see an owl perched up there. All of their money is dedicated to their god Moloch, to the evil ones, the symbol for their evil god. There's a few different names for those characters, but that's what your Federal Reserve note is. There's a little screech owl in the corner. Now, I got great horned owls outside. We got three of them, as far as we know. So there's at least one nesting pair. Oh, there's supposed to be 2 females and 1 male here. And the male's got a lot brighter breast, brighter chest. He's the one that's sitting on the nest most of the time. I guess that's basically gives him shelter, then that's where he's at. And the girls sit up in the limbs of the other palm trees. It's just kind of wild. Yeah, I'm wintering here in Arizona. So that's where this is from. I hope this is helping you. I'm not getting much feedback and not getting much direction. Maybe I just haven't been monitoring the channel very well. I'm new at this. Any ideas you have, places you want to go, questions, put them in there. Hey, if you know something better than I do, put it in there too, because I want to learn as well. I'm going to keep those comments open as best I can. I don't have anybody else moderating me or anybody else helping me. I would love to have a helpmate in several ways, several levels. I'd love to put other people to work. I'd love to have a good skilled people and have them produce these videos. I'd like to have salespeople selling sponsorship even. I'd like to have a nice staff. I don't mind sharing at all. As a matter of fact, that's what I want to do because, it's important. It's important to put people to work. Main point, what I was getting to, ladies, is be nice, be kind. Let the guys protect you a little bit. Realize that your creation and your design is more complicated. There's more to you than there is to a man. And because of that, you require more shelter, more maintenance, more protection. And we don't mind providing that to you. We just want a little bit of respect. We really do. And we have to form the team. Eves, you can't be blaming Adams anymore. Adams, you can't be blaming Eves anymore. We got to form that team. The American family is what's going to help bring this through, because when all is said and done, it's just the survivors of that's going to be around. The children. And I know that we're coming through some rough times, but if you need a stimulus package, children are the way to go. And if that means, and ladies, if that means you're staying home to take care of the kids, enjoy that. Enjoy that. Most women love that. They like to stay home with the kids. Don't farm out education to strangers. Do it yourself. You can do a much better job than these institutions can do. Don't do that child abuse. Don't put your children in there. Don't do that educational abuse, having them taught by the evil ones, basically. Don't allow the liberals to take over your children. Give them a protected time. They don't need to be worried about what their gender might be when they're 5 years old or 7 years old or 3 years old or even 12 years old. We need to leave them alone. We need to give them some preparation. We do that by teaching them about animal husbandry. We teach them about how animals reproduce. We don't have to teach them about how humans reproduce. We have to be honest about it. We have to tell them, yes, a woman has a vagina just like a mare has a vagina. Yes, a man has a penis, just like a stallion has a penis. So they can come to learn these things, and they should know these things. And it shouldn't be anything unusual. It shouldn't be anything gross. This is the natural order. Get my Bible, folks. Yeah, I now know that the camera's catching it in a way that you get to read it straight ahead. Get this version of the Bible, whatever other versions you want, great. If you're a youngster, and this isn't directed to youngsters, but if you got youngsters, then what I'd like you to do is study Greek, Aramaic, and Latin. When you have those three languages, it really opens the world up to you to greater understanding, and you can help the rest of us out a lot if you do that. The old college entrance examination was translating the Bible into Greek, and then from Greek into Latin. So you were given a chapter, and you sat down at your desk, and you translated it without any help into Greek and into Latin. That's what we did as little boys, 12 years old to 14 years old, and was the college entrance examination. I don't consider myself highly educated. I don't consider myself as having been educated whatsoever until I read the Bible. Not once, but twice. Well, 3 times actually. Then I realized I was just starting to get educated. You need to read the Bible a few times so you can keep straight who the characters are, what the plot is. Oh, and character development, because you learn from that. You can borrow from it. Adam walked with his father in the cool of the day. Get up in the morning, go walk with your father. Pray. Talk to him. Ask him to guide you. Above all, ask him to bless you. Why not? Seek that blessing. Know his name. Call upon his name. Ask him to save our nation. Pray that he might use our leaders in a way that benefits us. He used Trump in a way that benefited us. But this current guy in office who's doing his 3rd term, we need to get rid of him. He doesn't belong running this country for 3 terms. He's also out to destroy us as fast as he can because he knows this is the only chance he gets. I'd like to see us throw both of those 2 jackasses in the White House out. I think you all deserve Nancy Pelosi for president. We would disagree so much, the squad or whatever they call themselves would always be rebelling against her. Nothing would get done, and that might be the way to finish this term up with a government that's locked up. And by the way, the 4th in line, the guy who's the minority leader for the Speaker for the House, don't want him for president either, even though he's a Republican. I don't want to even say anything, but the impressions I'm getting is that we don't want him. He's not a nice guy. There's a lot of ways things can work out. Would I vote for President Trump again? Yes, I would. I think he's another one of those political jackasses, though. Yeah, I know you conservatives think he's perfect and he's done everything right. I can assure you he hasn't. He's an Israel firster, but not this Israel. That little postage stamp of a country over there, the imposters, the identity thieves, and he's a member of the tribes as well. Oh, and by the way, this guy that's currently occupying the White House, he's one of them too. That's hard to believe. However, I would vote all day long for what President Trump, what Donald John Trump stood for. I would vote all day long for that. I would hope that we could roll this federal government back so that the president's office no longer can wage war freely across the country, no longer can manipulate the legal system inside the country. We need to return to the rule of law, to constitutional rule of law, common law, and not to this uniform commercial code, not to statutory law. We need to go back to the common law and the Constitution. There's a vast difference. We need to go back to an honest currency, honest money. You want to know what money is? The Bible tells you what money is. It tells you it is a precious metal, and it has a quality. a refinement quality, and it also has weight. So it is a weight. It is a unit of mass. It is an ounce of silver or an ounce of gold. And a man's daily wages back then, at the end of the day, he got paid. And whether or not there was no withholding, not even in the United States of America. You got paid at sunset, and you got a silver dollar at the end of the day. That's been a man's wages for a long time. So that's what I think a silver dollar ought to be worth. We need to go back to that as fast as we can. These politicians that are spending all this money overseas, they're lining their pockets with it. It comes back to them. We have the finest congressman, the best congressman money can buy. Mark Twain said that. Samuel Clemens. All right, I'm over an hour. I'm out of here. Bye-bye.